call this meeting to order. One quick announcement that I have. I'm sure everybody's heard or at least seen Dale Goder decided to step down from his position on the park board. That's all I got. So. Anything else, Troy or Penny?
No, I'm not aware of anything. I don't think Troy's on the call yet.
Okay. We can go to public comments here then. Troy and I and Philip met with Becky last week. Becky is a liaison for the pickleball contingent here in Wichita. And she is here to share with us what she's got. So Becky, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. I want you all to know that I've read the 21 letters from your April meeting, I listened to them 3 times now, and I've made notes the 3rd time so I wouldn't have to keep listening to them. So I feel like they made a lot of valid points, and I really welcome the opportunity to discuss what I feel about what was said in those 21 letters. Thank you for the opportunity to do so. I appreciate having a voice in this still, and I hope that I can make some points that will give you something to think about. A little short background on myself. I played tennis for 35 years. I was a tennis player, and I played golf for 20 years in there somewhere. At the same time, I was playing tennis, and I also served on the Mo Conley board, which is the board that gave $405,000 to the Riverside project. So all of that money that we made for the Riverside, for the Mo Conley, over the past 45 years went to Riverside, and I was a big part of that. I was on the board for more than 15 years, and I'm still an honorary board member. So I still kind of keep my fingers in the world, as well as now I've discovered pickleball. So I wear both hats, and I try to see both sides of this coin, and I try to think about what's being discussed and how can we make Edgemore a better facility. Not just what can we do for pickleball, what can we do for tennis, but what can we do to make Edgemore a better facility for the needs of our community. And so there's a lot going on with pickleball right now. There's a lot going on with tennis, apparently, that I'm not, fully versed in quite as much as I am pickleball, but there's obviously no way that we can go and just build new pickleball courts where we need them. And we do need a lot of pickleball courts. There's a lot of pickleball players. I was just telling Eddie that we had a pickleball tournament over the weekend, and at Riverside on brand new courts over there that are just wonderful. And thank you to the city and Troy for getting that done. It's a fantastic facility. They had 80 new players, additional players from the last tournament they had. So they had a total of 250 people enter the tournament at $45 a head, and they raised that raises $11,250 just an entry fee. So you can see it's just kind of addressing some of the issues that were brought up in the 21 letters. And I'm not going to talk about every letter, but I'm going to kind of highlight some points. Is they talk about economic income to the city from tournaments and so forth. Well, I think that most of the things that they talk about that tennis can do, pickleball can also do, as far as create revenue from tournaments, from people coming in town, spending money at our hotels, our restaurants, just all the things that go with that. So, also pickleball is a lifetime sport. They keep saying tennis is a lifetime sport. And I used to believe that before I couldn't walk after I played tennis. So now I play pickleball. I found pickleball, and I was like, I can do this. I can still do this, you know, and it gives me as much joy as tennis ever did, and it's a lifetime sport too. So you know, it just so many of the positives and the wonderful things that tennis speaks to can also be said for pickleball. So I guess the things that I want to talk about today are why do we want to do this? And it's because we have such a huge growth in pickleball right now. Like I said, just for that one tournament, 80 additional new entrants for one tournament. And that tournament's going to be held twice a year now. It's so popular. There's another tournament called the Bob Jackson Tournament, and it comes up in September, and it's going to have the same result. And we're going to be able to, it's held at Edgemore. And right now we have 6 courts, and we have people coming from Kansas City, Missouri, Topeka, Oklahoma City, Denver, from all around that come to these tournaments. So we need courts. So how do we get courts? How do we decide which courts are going to be pickleball, which courts are going to be tennis? That's the argument here, or the issue. And I like to be fair. I want to approach this in a fair manner because I still have a lot of tennis friends, and I certainly don't want to ruin those friendships or be on the wrong side of anyone that I still serve on that board with. But I also want to do what is right for our community and right for pickleball. And I believe that right now pickleball is going to be overwhelmed because we don't have enough courts. Several points. Chicken and Pickle just raised their pre-COVID or their COVID prices, which was half price at Chicken and Pickle. They just went back to their pre-COVID rates, which doubles basically what it costs to play pickleball at Chicken and Pickle. They're $40 an hour now. And so everybody, I don't know if you're a part of the Wichita Pickleball website, but there's people are jumping ship at Chicken and Pickle, and they're looking for places to play. They're going to come look for those public courts. And that's my objective, is to always keep pickleball as it was in public, accessible to everybody, not just people who can go to a country club, you know, or join a tennis club or go to Chicken and Pickle. We have to keep the courts public. So that being said, it's going to change the scene, particularly on the outdoor scene right now, because it's summer, the months are warm, people are playing outside, and people they won't pay those prices anymore. It was great for the last year and a half during COVID because it was half price. That's changed again now. The other thing is that's really going to, I think, make an impact on the numbers for people playing pickleball is that on August 5th, we are holding an in-service with USD 259 to teach 200 physical education teachers, grade K through 12, how to teach pickleball to their students. So we're going to teach 200 teachers who are going to go back to their classrooms, and they're going to teach pickleball as a segment in all the public schools. And that's going to create another wave of pickleball players. There's just really no way to imagine. I mean, I can't even imagine that we are where we are today. I couldn't have imagined that 5 years ago. But in another 5 years, I know I'll look back and go, what happened? You know, what the heck, where'd that wave come from? But it's just a constant growth rate. And we are behind in pickleball courts. We have 21 pickleball courts outdoors, and we have almost 50 tennis courts. That's a little bit uneven, and they're not obviously all at one place, but they do exist. It's a little bit uneven at this point, and the proposal is to take 2 more tennis courts at Edgemore. We currently took 2 tennis courts and have converted that to 6 pickleball courts, and they still have 6 tennis courts. If we take 2 more they would have 4 tennis courts still, and we would have the equivalent of 4 tennis courts that were converted into 12 pickleball courts, which we need if we're going to have tournaments of the size that we're talking about and get the programs going, children's programs. We're looking at starting camps for kids and doing teaching like that in the summertime. So there's just so much, so many ways that pickleball is going to continue to grow. And it's not just going to grow 1 or 2 a day. It's going to grow 5 or 6 people a day, you know, especially when USD 259 kicks in. You're going to have whole families over there. And, you know, people work, and especially in the summertime, it's hot. And to have some pickleball courts that are under lights is the optimal for pickleball. It's something that we need to have more of. We have all the courts at Riverside are lighted, which is great. We're looking for something on the east side of town. We're not looking for money. We have the money to do it. We've raised the money through tournaments, through tournament efforts, and also public fund or private funds that have been raised. So it's not an issue of money. It's an issue of cooperating with the tennis community and going forward to make Edgemoor a better place for everybody. And, you know, the third time listening to these emails that came in, there's a guy he's the past president of the USTA of Kansas. And there's a lady that wrote one of the letters, and she's the executive director of the USTA of Kansas. And both of them, and another person or two, talks about all the USTA money that they can get for public tennis courts. I see that as being a partnership that should be nurtured and grown, because if they can get that kind of anything from the USTA to help the city of Wichita bring its courts back to what they should be. And there's a lot of disrepair, and there's a lot of deferred maintenance on these courts, not just at Edgemoor, but all over town. I think it's time to maybe join hands with these people and come up with a plan and come up with a plan that works for Edgemoor, for the tennis people and the pickleball people, and get another stream of income coming in besides the money that pickleball is making. Just indoors, at Edgemoor, we've got 3 indoor courts taped off in there, and they play pickleball in there every day, virtually every day, at $2 a head. So if you think about 12 people in there playing pickleball, and that's an understatement. There's always a line waiting to play. At $2 a head times 7 days a week, that's $144 times 52 weeks. That's $7,500 that we're making just playing pickleball in there on that gym floor. There's the potential to make money from pickleball is there. And I'm not saying that's necessarily the only incentive that there should be for doing this conversion. I really truly believe that this conversion should reflect the needs of the community more than just a monetary goal. And I strongly feel like it can, because pickleball is there. It's coming, and we need to be ready. And there's just a lot going on in pickleball, and I appreciate the opportunity to bring these issues to your attention and have you consider anything. And I'm happy to answer some questions. I've got 12 pages here with a bunch of scribbled notes, and I hope I don't sound as fragmented as my notes are, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. I'm passionate about this. I believe in this. I believe in this every bit as much as I believed in tennis when I first picked up my first tennis racket. It's something that brings people together. It's a common unity. It saves lives. It makes people healthier. It brings families together. I can't tell you how great the social aspects are of this game. So I'm happy to take questions, answer any questions that you might have from the 21 letters that you got and listened to. I'm sure that there were a few things that you wondered about, and because they did make some valid points, and I'd like to speak to anything that you ask.
Thank you, Becky. I see a hand up from Troy here, so I'll pass it over to him.
So yes, I wanted to share that there is definitely a huge need, and there is a lot of folks that want to play pickleball. So I could build 100 courts, and I think that might satisfy their needs. But there is plans moving forward, but they're just not fast enough to meet the need right now. I get probably 2 emails a week, and there was one situation about, I don't know, close to 2 months ago where Councilmember Bluebaugh received about, I don't know, 40 emails, and he just forwarded them to me, and wasn't anything that I didn't know, wasn't anything that was new or surprising. And what we typically like to do in these situations when we have stakeholders out there is we like to work with one group or 1 or 2 or 3 people that kind of represents that stakeholder group. And so I really didn't respond to 40 emails because I was working directly with the ambassadors for pickleball, and we meet and talk, maybe not regularly, but we know how to get a hold of each other, and we know how to share information as things move forward. So so I just wanted to echo what Becky's talking about, is that there is a demand, and we have put a plan together. We want to put more efforts into that. Right now, the quickest and easiest way to put out pickleball courts is to transform current tennis courts into pickleball courts. That transformation is moving right now because construction costs are changing, but I'm guessing somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000. If we put in a 6-court pickleball system like we did over at, help me, Becky, the new one we just did.
Riverside?
No.
Oh, the new Seneca.
Seneca.
Thank you,
Seneca.
Seneca.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That cost us over $100,000. So the cheapest and easiest way to do that is to transform tennis courts that aren't necessarily being used. So yeah, it's just a matter of getting more CIP dollars into the system.
Mr. Palmer?
Thank you, Eddie. Do we know how many pickleball courts we have and how many tennis? I know we know, but what is the number of pickleball courts and lighted pickleball courts to tennis and lighted tennis courts? Do we know that? Do we know the ratio to that?
So I'm not really sure exactly how many lighted tennis courts we have. Right now, I think we have somewhere in the neighborhood of probably about 20, maybe 18 lit tennis courts, because we're talking about McAdams courts, they're lit. We have obviously the ones at Riverside that are lit, and a few other parks that probably have a set of 2 tennis courts that might be lit. So we're probably talking around 18 tennis courts that have lights.
And how many of those are pickleball courts combined? And then if they're not combined, how many pickleball courts do we have that are lighted?
So as far as lit tennis or pickleball courts, we only have the ones at Riverside.
That's it.
That are lit?
Yes, that are lit. That's 9.
So 9 total. We have 20, potentially 20 tennis courts that are lit around the city.
Yep, 18 or 20, somewhere around there.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
Okay.
Alejo?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, Troy, do we have an idea, or have we already identified tennis courts that are underutilized or not being utilized? And then for Becky, does the location of those pickleball courts and where they go, I mean, is that something that the pickleball community is concerned about?
What's your question for Troy or for me? I'm sorry.
The first question was for Troy. Have we already identified the tennis courts that are not being utilized? And then for you, Becky, is there specific locations that you guys are looking at?
Yes, Alejo, we got a list of tennis courts that aren't necessarily high use, and part of that is also from our knowledge of them renting out courts. So like over at Edgemore, there's about $1,000 that I earn every year from reservations for those tennis courts. But we have been switching several of our tennis courts that aren't being used into futsal courts and into pickleball courts. And so we're going to be adding a couple more pickleball courts down south that used to be tennis courts, but they're not lit. There is one site that I think we talked about a little bit, is Eastview, that does have lighting, and that has a possibility, strong potential for being converted to pickleball courts. So we could put 6 pickleball courts there underneath the lights, and that's a really strong option because it's not next to any neighbors. It's close to the road. It's on the northeast side of town. So that's a good option that we've been looking at as well.
Alejo, the reason we chose in Edgemore is because we already have 6 courts there. And as with tennis, down at Riverside, they've always needed 12 courts to be a tournament site to attract tournaments from the Missouri Valley, from regional tournaments. And if you don't have 12 tennis courts, you're not going to attract the tournaments. So Riverside has really suffered for years because they didn't. And now because of Troy's leadership and the wonderful generosity of the city, Riverside now has 12 courts. And I see big things happening down there with their tennis programs. I don't want to see the same thing happen to Edgemore, where we already have 6 courts, and then put 6 courts somewhere else and kind of just have splitting between the locations. I'd like to see one area, one location, one venue like Edgemore that has an indoor facility, have enough courts so that we're not in the same position that Riverside was in for years without enough courts to attract tournaments. And you really have to have those minimum amount of courts to get those tournaments to come in there. Right now we have 9 at Riverside, and yes, you can tape off courts and you can bring the nets and you could, you know, do some things like that, but it's not advisable. For number one, 2 people that wrote these letters, these USTA people, said that they can't use tennis courts for their certain USTA tournaments if they're painted lines, any other painted lines on their courts. So it sort of blows that out of the water to suggest doing that, which a few other people had suggested. That's not an option for the tennis community to tell us to just paint lines on their courts, because I think we'd be ruining some of their options as well by doing that. Also, temporary courts like that, if we painted or taped pickleball lines at, say, at Edgemore, several of the people in the letter said, well, why can't they just tape down lines and on our tennis courts and use our tennis courts? Well, there's no net. There's, you know, you have to go inside. You'd have to get a net from the person working inside, and say at 7 o'clock in the evening, there's nobody in the building. You can't bring your own net. First of all, temporary nets will not sustain a wind that's over 15 miles an hour, because you bring your net, you may as well bring some bags of cement to hold them down, because it's just not going to work. So it's very impractical. It's really not ideal at all to do it in that way. You have to have dedicated pickleball courts, just the same as you have to have dedicated tennis courts. And to do it any other way is impractical. It just doesn't work. It's difficult. Like when they taped off the courts at Riverside this last weekend, when they had the tournament, they taped it off Friday night. And And then they had that huge storm into Friday evening and through the night we had thunderstorms, and probably about 25% of the tape was up Saturday morning, and that had all be retaped. No, they're fortunate they didn't lose more than that, but there's issues with the taping and having to haul all the nets in there, and it's a big job and a big expense, I might add. So the tape's expensive to do that many courts. It would just give us a chance to have some lit courts, to have 12 courts, to be able to host tournaments, to be able to do so much more at Edgemoor, rather than splitting the locations. And, trying to run a tournament from 2 different locations has a set of its own problems. We've done that before. We've run a tournament at Linwood and Edgemoor before, and it leaves much to be desired. You need a tournament site, and Eastview is a generous offer, but 7 years ago, I was offered Eastview instead of Edgemoor to do some outdoor courts there before the outdoor courts were done at Edgemoor, and I respectfully declined because there was no facility there. And I know that facility closes at certain times, but when you're having a tournament, to have a facility is really important. We hire somebody to make sure that there's someone in that building during our tournaments that we have there. So there has to be a building, there has to be restrooms, there has to be a person to help us and to conduct the affairs and the business of pickleball. So yeah, I choose Edgemoor because it's a fabulous facility. I choose Edgemoor because the lights are there. I choose Edgemoor because it's got help there as far as employees. I choose Edgemoor because it's got other things going on in the park, and it's a family park. It can, if everybody in the family's not playing pickleball, maybe somebody's over on skateboard, maybe somebody's playing basketball. It's a great park, and I think pickleball people deserve half of the concrete over there. We're not asking for more than half, just half. That's it. It's fair. It's equitable.
Mr. Houtman? You're muted.
Hey, I'm muted. Hey, all right. So just wanted to share a couple things as well. There are some other plans that are being devised in regards to expanding pickleball. South Lakes has lost a lot of usage, or most of our usage, in regards to soccer. It all went up to striker. So we have a lot of space there, and we are working with a group to do a evaluation and kind of see if there's a possibility of putting a pickleball, what do they call it? A pickleplex.
Pickleplex.
Yeah, where we can actually build somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 18 outdoor courts and maybe add some indoor courts there as well. That would be a fantastic location as a tournament site. And so I think we are definitely very interested in doing that. As we're working with the capital improvement plan, how does that fit in with all the other items, not just in Parks and Recreation, but with all the other demands on the city? So it's something that the city manager is definitely looking at. Councilmember Bluebots in his district, he knows about it and is very interested in pursuing that as well. I think it would relieve a lot of the pressure of the local pickleball demand, but also would draw a lot of tournaments to Wichita if we can have this pickleplex put in place. So it is definitely something that is doable, and it's something that is definitely within the radar that we're looking at. So I just wanted you guys to be aware of that as well, and that there's more energy than what we're talking about, just 6 courts for the short term.
TP?
Thank you for that, Troy. Unfortunately with that plan, it's probably more than a couple of years away. And so it sounds like there's immediate need. Can we not have a conversation, either Edgemoor or Eastview, since we have Riverside and what all the city's done at Riverside? Can we not start to have this conversation to convert either Edgemoor, or certainly for the interim, right? I mean, so we're doing something now, not waiting for Pickleplex to come on board in 2024 or whatever.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about. Is do we? There's an idea of doing Edgemore, putting 6 courts there, or Eastview, putting 6 courts there as well. They're both lit. I mean, either
But
one
Edgemore
of those.
doesn't have the or Eastview doesn't have the facility, right? Becky, is that what you're saying? Like
Correct.
Edgemore.
There's no,
Yeah, it doesn't have the restrooms. But again, a lot of times when people are playing pickleball, the recreation center is closed. So, you know, there's other ways to address that as well. We could put porta potties there, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of different options that we can look at.
So how do we? So I guess then the reason why I try to bring it to the forefront. I know we've talked about a few things. What do we need to do to move one direction or the other for Becky and the pickleball players, so they have some direction for now rather than later? What do we need to do now?
Yeah, we need to make some decisions on which tennis courts we want to convert into pickleball courts. There is money from the Park Foundation, as well as money that the Light Up Edgemore folks have used. I'm actually have fundraised for. So it's not a matter of funding. It can happen. It's just a matter which one you guys want to choose. And if we use the ones over at Edgemore, there's definitely going to be backlash from the tennis community. You know, the idea of tournaments, we can always have tournaments over at Riverside. We have 9 courts. We can convert a few of them into pickleball courts, and has all the other amenities there that we can use. They were very successful this past weekend, obviously. So that is an option as well. So a lot of things to contemplate.
But Eastview though is how many tennis courts and how many pickleball?
2 tennis courts that would convert into 6 pickleball courts. Same thing over at Edgemore.
So neither place would give you enough to have your tournament in one location, Becky?
that's
Well,
correct. That is correct. But either Riverside or Edgemore would have tennis courts that could be taped. If you
Well,
did-
yeah,
if-
I'm trying to leave Riverside out just as a, you know, just trying to, keep you separate. Let's see if we can find a location that works for you that you could run your tournaments and be
Yeah.
happy at, you know,
There-
certainly at the intro.
There's no possibility. There's no way to make Eastview more than what it is. It's only going to be always 6 pickleball courts if you convert the 2 tennis courts. At the potential for Edgemore is greater, much greater. You would have the potential to have 12 pickleball courts there, which is what you need to have the tournaments that we're talking about having. And anything less than that is substandard for the purposes and for the intended purposes. I just, you know, I just feel like adding 6 more pickleball courts at Edgemore would make it more of a place, a hangout, somewhere that people know this is a center for pickleball. And that alone would attract more players, just to have that kind of gravitational pull, because it is something. You've created something. You've created a tournament site. You've created outdoor lit, outdoor unlit, indoor pickleball courts. You've got it all there. It's, in my opinion, has always been the place for it. And also, I really believe in Edgemore Park. I said at the beginning, I want to do what's right for Edgemore Park to meet the needs of the community. And if Edgemore Park gets some improvements along that road, yay, good, all good. But Edgemore Park is, it's much loved by the pickleball people. But
I just want to point out that, though, is if there's a situation where that becomes the pickleball center, then that loses that opportunity to do something out South Lakes. Politically, it probably would have an impact on that opportunity. Just from the capital dollars that are out there, that could be one of the situations that occur. So,
Ty?
But the tournaments that you're talking about hosting at a Pickleplex or a pickle complex that you would build, the minimum course that would be required for the national tournaments that come in here would be 20 to 40 courts. So I don't think that would be a detriment to that facility, I would hope.
Well, we all can have our opinions, and from what I've seen and what I understand in regards to our capital dollars, where they would want to spend them, it could have, I'm not saying it will, but I'm saying it could have a perception of, why would we not want to do that if we already have something over at Edgemoor? So
just to bring in bigger tournaments, to bring in more people to our city, because if you go to a Pickleplex, that's what it takes to bring in those big tournaments. And we have, I think I've mentioned before, we have 4 out of 10 of the top ranked players living here in Wichita. We have, they're the national best players in the nation. Lucy Kovalova, Matt Wright, Smith, and Jocelyn. They're the top 4 players in the nation, and they live right here in Wichita, Kansas. We have so much opportunity here in Wichita, even with Chicken Pickle and all of the courts that are here, and all of the large percentage of the nation's greatest players live here. We sort of have the name of pickleball capital of the world. I mean, that sounds crazy, but in the pickleball world, that's when people go to tournaments and all the national players are there, and our players get called up to go report to the court for their matches. People go, "Oh yeah, Wichita, pickleball capital of the world," and we're known, So people will come to our Pickleplex. People will come to our city in droves to play in our tournaments, because we have so many great players here, and when we need something to keep the momentum up here, because I don't see South Park or Southview Park, can't remember the name of it, but that probably won't happen for, I don't know, I don't have a crystal ball, but 3 to 5 years possibly, and we're talking a long time from now. But what are we going to do to keep the momentum up, the momentum going that we have, that we've built, that we've been building, that I've been working on for 7 years, along with Troy Houtman and many other people, build this program that is blowing up all around us.
So I just have a question. Is there a recommendation from staff? I mean, from my perspective, it's a little hard for us to advocate, because it seems like it's a zero-sum game, where the tennis community was also very passionate and enthusiastic and made a pretty compelling argument about their partnerships, the future of their sport, and the trend line for them. I think personally the pickleball is more popular, but in the short term, there are winners and losers until we can build for the future. So it's hard for me to sort of understand what side to fall on here. So I'm just wondering if staff, who is much closer to this, has a recommendation on how to proceed here.
Sure, I could give you my recommendation. This goes on with a couple things I've already mentioned. I really want to see more pickleball courts, and like I mentioned, it's hard to get the capital dollars to do that. The idea of a Pickleplex, I think, is gaining a lot of momentum. Again, crystal ball, we don't know. Is it going to happen next year? Is it going to happen in 5 years? I don't know, but I know we've been definitely talking about it very, very strongly. The other item that is kind of a concern of mine as well is, if we take over those 2 courts over at Edgemoor, there's going to be backlash. There's going to be a lot of unhappy tennis players, and they're going to be very vocal about it. So that one, that shouldn't be the deciding factor, but there is some truth about what they're talking about. There's some momentum for tennis, and we want to make sure that we keep our tennis courts and our tennis programs moving forward. The idea of taking some of our not used tennis courts and turning them into something that's going to be useful is really kind of exciting to me, because then we're actually using amenities in our parks. If we don't use the ones at Eastview, we're going to still have 2 tennis courts that aren't being used, which is a waste of an amenity that could be used for something else. My thought on this is, if we were to build more pickleball courts in each one of the areas of the city, that just really kind of builds that foundation to go after this pickleplex and this whole idea of having a mega center. I don't want to lose that opportunity or that momentum. And on the same line, I know that the USD 259 is adding 2 pickleball courts in one of their sites. We're down south, we're adding 2 pickleball courts, and we're going to be looking at more opportunities to be putting in pickleball courts. So I think it's not that the 6 courts today is not going to change the demand, but it's really going to hopefully actually whet the appetite for even more. And we want to keep looking at that as well. So that was a long story. For my recommendation is Eastview is where I think I would want to see that. But again, this is such a difficult decision. It's my favorite saying is I have a leg on each side of the barbed wire, and it's and that's not a very comfortable feeling. So it's a tough one to make, though. But that would be my recommendation.
Becky, have you had any, you mentioned that you're part of the tennis community. Have you had any correspondence with some of the concerned citizens that wrote those emails to us a couple months ago?
No, I have intentionally not addressed any of the people personally, even though I know probably half of those people on a personal level. I just, I knew I was going to be speaking to you, to your board, and I just kind of, my first reaction was to wait and hear everybody's opinion and hear everybody's side of the story and kind of weigh it out before I reach out to those people. So,
sure.
I want to tell you that Topeka has, in Hughes Park, they have 18 pickleball courts. And they have state tournaments there. They have a lot of tournaments there. They also have in their budget, their council has voted to spend $10 million on a pickleball complex, and they have 18 courts already. So they see what's coming. They know that 18 courts in one place is not going to be enough, that they need more courts, they need lit courts, they need restaurants, they need bars, they need the whole package.
Sure. The reason why I bring that up is because they obviously brought up some valid concerns, which is why we initially paused that conversation to look at all our options. So I wasn't sure if you had talked to anybody over there in the tennis community to address some of those concerns.
I have not. But I'd be willing. I just don't want to. I didn't want to get into anything before I heard all of the sides. So
sure.
I wanted to listen here and receive some guidance.
Alejo?
Yeah, I had a question for Becky. So you expressed some reservations on the Eastview Park. Was it the lack of there being restrooms, or what's the community's reservation on Eastview Park tennis courts being converted to pickleball courts? Because those are lit.
They are lit. First of all, the people that love to play at Edgemoor have given their money, the money that they've given to enter these tournaments and the money that they've donated to the Parks Foundation has been earmarked for Edgemoor. And I don't think they would really appreciate a switch here suddenly. Oh, we're going over there. What happened to the lights at Edgemoor? What happened to that leadership? What happened to that project? Not only is there a problem with no facilities, there's the problem of splitting up the location to hold tournaments. It's sort of it's just difficult to run a tournament from 2 different sites. We've done that, and it's difficult. It's more cohesive. It's more friendly if everybody's in one place. I mean, if you would have been over at Riverside and seen the camaraderie and the love, just the whole thing over the weekend was incredible. And that's the kind of stuff you want to keep together. You don't want to send your 3-0s. Here's what happens. If you have to split locations, who gets sent over there? Well, usually the players that are 3-0 and below. And so, they're offended. The hot are all over at Edgemore. It's just it's a separation thing. And it doesn't work well for people's egos. It doesn't work well for ergonomics, the whole thing of just, being able to do it. Also, there's delays when you do things like that. It's just good to have everything in one place.
Troy, can you touch on the financial portion, the foundation a little bit?
So, Light Up Edgemore has done a lot of fundraising, and it's in the foundation's account. And they had made the promise, the verbal commitment last meeting to support either location of switching 2 tennis courts to pickleball courts, whether it's at Edgemore or whether it's at Eastview. So obviously with the support of the fundraising at either one of those locations. So that's kind of what they've been talking about.
Okay. Okay. Anything else for Becky while we still have her on?
Troy, how many tennis courts do we have at Eastview? And is your proposal, are you suggesting that we convert all of them to pickleball?
There's 2 tennis courts there, and yes, they'd be turned into pickleball. As I mentioned earlier, someplace we have to give up tennis courts to turn them into pickleball courts. Well, we don't have to, but that's the most efficient way for me to do that with the limited funds that we have right now. Unless we come up with $120,000, $140,000. That was over at Seneca. That cost was, I think, about $110,000 for that, and those courts were so bad that we had to start over again. And that also meets our criteria of having steel cabled concrete to squeeze in the courts and keep them from cracking. So with the costs that are going up, I would gather that what we saw over at Seneca was 110 is now probably about $140,000 now. If we come up with that funding, well, then we can definitely add that anywhere we want. Pretty much anywhere, not necessarily everywhere, but almost anywhere.
Did that money include Troy lights as well?
No.
Okay.
Which is probably another $120,000.
Yeah, and lights are as much as the courts.
Yep.
We also have a plan, and I've some on this by visiting all the different tennis court facilities throughout the city, identifying which ones would be best to convert. And I made a lot of notes on that. And what the plan is to take those 2 court tennis facilities and leave one as a tennis court and convert the other tennis court into 2 pickleball courts, so that there would be pickleball and tennis at all of the facilities that just have 2 courts. So you're not because there's always going to be people that, hey, they're taking away my tennis courts. They're making pickleball courts out of our tennis courts that we go to every week, or, and you're going to get that at Eastview too. You've got people that play pretty regularly at Eastview. I live in Eastboro, not too far from there, and I've noticed people do use Eastview for tennis. Some, I don't know how much, but it's the plan that the city came up with, and that we all thought was a good plan, was just to do 1 tennis court with those and 2 pickleball courts, instead of going from 2 tennis courts to 6 pickleball courts, making it a total conversion. We wanted to sort of save the tennis court in those facilities for the tennis players, and then have something for the pickleball people too. I still think that's a good plan.
And I think that's something we've got scheduled at several of our parks for the tennis courts, with 2 courts for pickleball conversion. But this idea over at Eastview to really get 6 courts underneath the lights for pickleball, I think this is a great opportunity to do that with minimal impact to the tennis folks. There's still opportunities for them to play at other places that are nearby, so they can continue to play tennis. But yeah, this is a difficult one. This is a tough one.
It is. You know, I don't know. I still don't really understand why they have to have six courts. I think that they could have 4 courts. I've been in many drill sessions and on teams where we're doing our practices, and there's 7 people on a court practicing. Not every court just has to have 4 people. I understand that that's not optimal for some coaches, and that it's doable, and it's done a lot. You don't have to have more than 4 courts. There's very few facilities that would offer that.
Okay. Is there anything else for Becky?
50-50. Happy to answer anything further. Otherwise, I appreciate your consideration, and I hope we reach a consensus here soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Becky, for coming to share your story with us and your passion for pickleball. So
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Take care.
Okay, we do not have minutes to approve. They're still unavailable at this time. So we can breeze by that and get right back into the pickleball discussion. So I can kind of go down the line here and get everybody's thoughts, but just want to chat a little bit more about, you know, the future, big picture, financials, and then we can weigh where we are at the end. So Troy, if you want to just kind of share a little bit more. I know that we dove into the weeds there a little bit with public comment, but I think it was important that Becky be here to share her side of the story. You shared some pros and cons for each location. And then obviously the South Lakes master plan. Again, nobody has a crystal ball. It could be next year. It could be 5 years from now. But when I look at it big picture, you know, I think I really like what you call it, the pickleplex. I really like that idea. We really do have a chance to be a leader in the pickleball community here in Wichita. As Becky mentioned, we've got 2 of the top players in the world, both on the men's and women's side. They're a lot of fun to watch if you ever get an opportunity. They never miss the center of the paddle, which is pretty fun. You know, but I think big picture, that's something that we could really hang our hats on and look forward to, instead of just putting a Band-Aid, you know, on it for a couple years. Another concern that I have with Edgemore, and you know, we brought this up 2 months ago, and the 21 emails that we received, they brought up all very valid points. One stuck out to me the most. I think we're around 50 high school or you know, kids that practice there after school, the classical school kids, and you know, that's about 50 too many kids for me to displace. You know, if they have visions to go play in high school, college, and beyond, you know, I certainly don't want to you know, rip a tennis court up out from under their feet. So that's why I think Eastview and in this instance makes more sense. But I certainly want to hear from, you know, staff and then the rest of you guys on where you sit as well.
So one of those reasons why I was supporting Eastview, and we have tennis tournaments that are going on currently over at Edgemore, and a lot of those are high school, and they're going to be feeders into some other programs as well. If we had high school pickleball that was doing this, would we be taking them out? So that's kind of the question I'm looking at as well, is that we're already serving a population that's already having expectations. And I think we can build those expectations for pickleball and still meet those demands with a good foundation. So I wouldn't want to have an impact on high school sports, recreational sports, the folks that have this expectation of using Edgemore. And as we've been talking about, Becky mentioned that we're going to be adding some pickleball courts around the city. Probably not an 18 court complex, but I don't want to put us in a situation where we're losing opportunity over at Riverside as well. Riverside just demonstrated that they can very successfully host tournaments. So if we wanted to do more tournaments for pickleball, we can definitely do that at Riverside. And I wouldn't want to lose that opportunity to showcase Riverside, what we can do over there. So those are basically my thoughts, and that's kind of some of the added reasons why this is a very difficult, tough decision. I've been flip-flopping on this both ways, and I can see the pros and cons on both. But for the short term, I think that's kind of my best thoughts on that. And that short term focuses on the foundation for the long term. I really want to see us address this in a long term. And I think just putting 6 more courts over at Edgemore is not the long-term solution. So,
Troy Palmer.
So I have two questions. The first question is, I hear, and unfortunately, I mean, I know you guys can look at me and know that I'm probably a very good tennis player. Not really. But since we talk so much about pickleball, the only place that's come online that's a private pickleball, if pickleball is as big as everybody's saying, is Chicken and Pickle. Am I right? So, I mean, it's fair to say that pickleball as a whole may be a great sport, but people are really looking for the city to build all their courts for them because it's not a well enough business to do it privately.
I would have to disagree with that.
That's my question. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing. I'm just asking the question.
I think the pickleball courts, the concept itself, in particular, Chicken and Pickle, they don't make their money from the pickleball, as I'm sure you know, Troy. They make it, bringing families out and having something for the entire family to do, whether it's the Jenga blocks or bocce ball or whatever, but certainly the food and beverage, and it's a very sustainable business plan. I think it was a $17 million project over at Chicken and Pickle, and in the first year they did about $9.5 million of revenue. So it's sustainable, and it's gotten to the point where other developers and other entities are looking at doing a very similar concept.
So that's my question. I mean, that was my question right there. Are more people, is the private sector investing private money into this sport? Obviously, there's lots of tennis places, tennis centers. Genesis has all the tennis, private money. Is there private people doing this? And I think you just responded to that, Eddie. So I appreciate that. That answers that question. So then the next part of my question, or not question, but if we were to give the pickleball, we'll call them the pickleball folks, Eastview as their home, but then allow them to use Riverside for their tournaments, are we satisfying them, or they still want Edgemore and that's it? And
yeah, that's a really good question, because they've been the 2 years back, the obvious site was to light up Edgemore. That was the obvious site to meet their needs. But I think now that we are looking at some other things down the line, I think things have changed a little bit. So, that you heard Becky, and I think maybe I don't want to speak for, I don't want her to speak for the whole pickleball community, but they're very interested in Edgemore. I mean, that's their dream. So, and then another thing I wanted to touch base on, you had on your comment earlier, Chicken and Pickle is a great place to go. I've gone there once and I had a hamburger there. It was no, I had a chicken sandwich there. It was a great chicken sandwich. But the reason why they're so interested in seeing more pickleball courts is to make them affordable. I don't know if this is true or not, but she mentioned it was $40 an hour to rent the pickleball court there at Chicken and Pickle. You can rent a pickleball courts over at Riverside for $4. So if you did that in the daytime, that's $1 a person. If you did it at night with the lights, it goes up to $8. So that's $2 a person. So Riverside is far more affordable, and then all of our other courts are free. So I think that's the idea, is what they want to make sure it's affordable and equitable and inclusive all across the board. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else want to share their thoughts?
Troy, if we could do this right, what would it look like? Like, is this just us building the Pickleplex? I mean, is that the end of the day like the best solution, or what does it look like in your mind to do this right?
No, as I mentioned, we need to put pickleball courts in all four corners of the city, east, north, south, west, places where people can go in and drop in and play. But one thing that I've noticed when I drive by Seneca is that there is a whole community that goes and plays at the same time. They have 20, 30 people, because they're not just playing pickleball, but they are having great conversations with each other, and enjoying the company. It's very social. And I think that's why Chicken and Pickle is very successful, because those folks are socializing, and in between that, they're having a beer, they're having a sandwich. There's just a very comfortable place with good music going on and all that kind of good stuff. That's kind of the higher end. What is the perfect picture? In my mind, is the Pickleplex, where we have one of the best places in the state, if not around this whole region, and that's why Stryker is successful. And that was the idea with Stryker, is instead of driving through Kansas to get to Colorado from Missouri, or instead of driving through Kansas to get to Nebraska from Texas, what's in there? It's Wichita. And why can't we host it? And then we're inviting all those folks to come play. So that Pickleplex, I think, is just like what we got with Stryker. It can be and would be an economic driver, especially in that part of the city. I think it's really important that we need to put some anchors there. And then, like I mentioned, some pickleball courts in all four corners of the city. What is that? 20 more courts at 6 sites, 20 more courts at 10 sites. I don't know, but and then obviously having instruction going on over at Riverside still. The great thing about Riverside is, worst case scenario, if the Pickleplex goes berserk and they need more courts there and nobody's playing pickleball over at Riverside, we can turn those into tennis courts. So there's flexibility there as well.
So we want to capture some of that incendiary tournament, opportunity that would normally drive past Wichita on their way to Kansas City or Omaha or wherever it may be. But in the interim, we also need to continue this momentum that we've got with pickleball, as Becky mentioned, the USD 259 opportunity that they're teaching their PE teachers how to teach kids how to play pickleball. So capture the momentum in the interim with the big picture, coming a couple years down the line.
One of the things that I've always talked about here in Wichita, Missouri is a show me state, Wichita is a show me city. And nobody wants to do anything until they see there's an actual demand. And by hosting tournaments, pickleball tournaments over at Riverside, you know what, we can demonstrate that there's demand and then justify the reason for the Pickleplex. I just don't want to lose that opportunity. I think that's something in the future that we need to plan for.
Sure. Okay, anybody else? right. Well, I would entertain a motion to make a recommendation to the city council to convert the 2 tennis courts at Eastview Park to 6 pickleball courts, so long as we still have the Park Foundation support. Any second?
I'll second that.
We've got a motion and a second. Further discussion, I see Ty's hand up and down.
And Tori
Ty,
was
did you have
trying to
something?
talk.
Nope, I'm just ready to vote. So yes.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I think Tori's trying to talk.
No, I'm good.
Oh, everything keeps lighting up and going dark. Lighting up.
Oh, let's do my air conditioner or something. Sorry.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Troy, will you make that recommendation here in the coming weeks to council? Oh, mute.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure if this has to go to council. I'll talk to Mr. Layton to see what the options are. And if we need to, we can do a presentation and do the presentation to council. So I will let you guys know what direction we're going to go with council, or whether I can make the decision with the city manager with your guys' recommendations. So, but the other half of it too is obviously they did some fundraising and they're expecting that money to go to Edgemore. It's their money. So without it, we might not be able to make it happen. But I think the Park Foundation is very interested in seeing pickleball courts as well. So I'll have to touch base with Becky as well as touch base with the Park Foundation before I move forward.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. All right, let's move forward. Continuation of prior business. Selection of GAC members. I know we've got, I believe there's 2 open spots now, if I'm not mistaken. Tori, I know you texted me over the weekend. Would you like to make a recommendation first on your appointment?
Yeah, his name is Cameron Christ, and he is a young professional here in Wichita who golfs several times a week, both public and private courses, and I feel like he will bring a good perspective to the committee.
Awesome.
Do I need to make a motion?
That's a good question. Can we, do we need to vote on this, or is that
Yes.
a formal appointment? Okay, I'll second that then, Tori.
Perfect.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Tori, can you email me his contact information, please?
Yep, I'll do that right now.
Thank you.
Okay. And I believe the other one is Philip Simon. I know we talked earlier this morning. Did you have an opportunity? If not, no big deal. We can get to it later on if you weren't able to vet somebody properly.
No, I haven't had a chance to. I need to talk to you more offline. I guess of the names that was provided to me by you, I just needed to kind of narrow that list down a little bit with you, and then talk with each one of those people.
Sure thing. No problem. Were those the only 2 appointments that we've got open right now, Troy? I think that's correct.
That is correct. Yeah, once we fill the vacancy on the park board, there'll be another appointment.
Yep, sure. Okay. A lot of moving parts right now. Moving forward, unless anybody else wants to make another appointment to the GAC and remove their current sitting member, which I don't think is an issue right now. we can move forward to Reggie's recreation update. Reggie, take it away.
Good to go.
Here.
You can minimize it by clicking in the top right corner there.
Here.
Right, just on that little bar. Yeah, click on that. There you go.
How do I expand here? I'm sorry.
That one.
Here.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to give an overview of some of the activities that are taking place in the rec division during the month of May. We've had quite a bit happening with some of the restrictions that have been lessened with the COVID, and getting a lot more activity that are taking place in our both indoors and outdoors at our facilities. So kind of wanted to start off initially with the Aquatics master plan. I'm sure you guys are aware that we opened up the 6 splash pads on in the pools on May the 31st. All 6 of the pools locations. We've also worked to transition to have hotspots and tablets on site to be able to do credit card transactions now, which will be a big push for us with generating additional revenue. This allows us, we're working to have 2 on-site tablets, 1 for admissions and 1 for concessions. And this gives us the capability to be able to run our rec track software at each of those locations, and being able to print rosters for swim lessons and other things that we offer at each of those sites, compared to what we were doing in the past with some manual recording of that and using cash registers for transactions and only taking cash. So that's a big transition for us with being more automated and using some of the resources that we have available. So these are some pictures of some of those renovated locations that are there, that you kind of see some of those improvements that are happening. We've done grand openings at majority of those facilities now. We have one on Friday for Linwood that we're doing as well for the splash pads there, and then we'll be working for Orchard to be the last one that we'll do once it's rescheduled. So one of the things that we've tried to continue to do as well is establishing the community partnerships to be able to use our facilities to meet some of the needs for the community during some of the hard times that families have faced during the COVID. So Evergreen Rec Center partnered with a community organization to be able to offer the Kansas food bank distribution at the Evergreen Rec Center. We had the last one on the 4th of May, and we're doing on the first Friday of each month moving forward during that time frame. And we had over 500 participants that came out and received food for that particular day. We were able to transition them in and continue to meet some of the COVID restrictions that we have in place there for that location, while still providing the needed service to the community. We also made some facility improvements there, where we actually went in and did a flooring project there. All of the interior floors were replaced there. We also did new carpet in the office area there, as well as went into the gym area, and some of the acoustics that we had in the ceiling that was there for years was taken down, and we found out that we had some hardwood that was up in the ceiling area there that we were able to resurface and put some acoustic panels in there and use some of the existing infrastructure there, instead of having the panels that we constantly had problems with balls hitting and falling down in the area there when it was being used. Once the summer camp is over, we're also going to go in and do some resurfacing and varnishing of the gym floor there after camp is done. So a lot of improvements there on site, a lot more activity that's going on there. And we also started a new middle school basketball league that's there in place, that started out with the first time with 26 kids registered. So that's something that we're trying to grow and continue to develop, provide some after school time for those young people in the community to do something constructive to help prevent some of the crime and other things that are challenging some of our communities. So kind of a continuation, we had our summer discovery camp that we actually had back in place this summer. Last year, we reduced those numbers to half capacity. We continue that again this year, and we're at capacity now with a wait list for the camps at the 3 summer discovery sites, as well as we have 4 summer activity camps that we're offering in the community as well. Our summer enrollment for classes have picked back up. We've had some classes that haven't made in the last year that are getting more people in and continuing to increase. So that's definitely a good sign for us as we continue to open up facilities and offer more programming and lessen restrictions that we have in place. The new splash pad opened up on the 28th there before, and we've also had a lot of people going out and participating in that. And our staff also taking the kids over during the summer is another opportunity to do some programming there on site with those summer camp kids. So the Great Plains Nature Center recently had some changes that were there. Our previous director that was there, Mark, retired, and we went through a national search for someone, and we ended up hiring Amanda Leslie, who was one of our naturalists that was there on site. She served as an interim director on 2 occasions for us, and after going through that process, she was definitely the most qualified person that we had that was able to fill in for that role. So Amanda started out there years ago, and her goal was to one day come director, and she took those necessary steps along the way to prepare her for that. So during that time frame that she's been with the city, she's went back and obtained her master's degree at Wichita State while she was employed here, and also has worked real closely with the Friends group there, as well as with the community, with developing a lot of new programs and processes and to help, we think, take the Nature Center to the next level with some of the things that we want to offer there. So the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has also been working to provide opportunities there as well to expand some of the natural resources and tourism things there through the fishing, through the Friends of Great Plains Nature Center there. So a lot of new programs that we're going to and investigating how we can provide new opportunities for the community through that partnership as well. So Watson Park has been extremely busy as well. As we had mentioned before, we had a lot of activity that was taking place. We had some record numbers that were there during the Easter weekend with some of the usage there. We also continue with our Little Heroes fishing tournament that we partnered with organization here in the community. We had over 600 families that came out for that particular event there on site. We had another year of our Youth Gladiator obstacle course that we offered there. We had over 1,000 people that came out for that particular race. We also had our Watson Landing Festival again this year, and the numbers and the cars there for that event was over 2,200 lanterns that we have there, and increased number of people that participated in it as well. Going along with the trend that we're seeing now with a lot of our outdoor activities, our volleyball league had the highest numbers that we had in history since we've offered it there. We had 37 teams that registered between 2 leagues, and we're also at the end of the month, due to the numbers of the league, we're looking at how we can potentially expand that and do even more with outdoor activities there at the site. And we went through one of the things that we did, we're working with David's team there, some of our standards that we had there for the volleyball courts. We made some improvements there as well. We're putting some rubber padding around that to make it more safe for the number of crowd and uses that we have there, and creating as safe environment as we can. So Brett and on David's team went out and put some rubber padding around those stanchions to make it safe for those participants there with those numbers that we continue to have increasing. So as we discussed, kind of the last thing I want to give an overview over this is a topographic of the improvements that we've made there at the tennis center. Kind of gives you an overview of where we are now. As you can see, we have the pickleball courts that are there on site that are being highly utilized. We went from the 3 that we had initially to adding 6 more for a total of 9 that are all lit there on site. We went from 10 courts that we had there for outdoor courts to 13. So that allowed us, like Becky mentioned earlier, to be able to host more of those statewide tournaments through the school districts as well as with the USTA. This past weekend, we had one of the largest pickleball tournaments here in the area. We increased from 160 participants to almost 260 this year. And that's just on the registration, not taking in consideration with the concessions and other things that are part of that as people come on site and the family members that come out and join as well. So a lot of good activity that's going on there, a lot of demand for it. And we'll continue to try to work on what we can do to program it and keep it as busy as possible for the community to use. So kind of an overview of some of those activities taking place in May. A lot of usage of our facilities, and people are excited about getting back out and being able to get in both our indoor and outdoor space. And we're just trying to keep up with the demand that we have to be able to support it. So I'll open it up for any questions that you guys may have as well.
Any questions for Reggie?
I have one.
Troy?
Reggie, on that last slide, the Riverside Tennis Center, what is, I see that it's 3 tennis courts or 6. Why is that shaded like that? Or is that not in the parking lot there? You see what I'm talking about?
I'm sorry, which area are you referring to? Are you referring to the east portion?
Hey, Troy Palmer, those are tennis courts that are underneath the bubble.
Oh, okay. That was my question. I wasn't sure what that was over there. Why was those like felt like they're kicked to the side? Okay, under a bubble. That makes sense.
Yeah,
that's the indoor.
So what happens when we have outdoor tournaments? We can't use those because then it's not apples to apples. It gives unfair advantages.
Oh, yes,
but they can use them for warming up or hitting and that kind of stuff. And then obviously they're very much used in that month of February.
Yeah. No, fantastic. Super. Thank you for that answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else for Reggie? Awesome. Thank you, sir. Hey, I got your July 7th meeting request. Get with me offline about when I need to show up and who I'll be meeting with. Happy to do it.
Perfect. I'll definitely do that.
Okay. Thanks, man. Let's go to the golf update and first tee with Troy.
I don't have a whole lot to share. The golf folks are doing very well. Been communicating with them often, and there's going to be a few adjustments that they're working on. The big item is tomorrow when I'm going to council. Let me back up a little bit. So last year, because of the high numbers from COVID, as well as the many openings that we had in golf, we ended up with $600,000 in the black. We have a list of $5 million worth of, actually probably more like $10 million when we start talking about irrigation, of repairs and upgrades that's needed. I'm going to take that first chunk tomorrow, and I'm asking for $350,000 so we can fix the ponds at McDonald and repair the roof at Tex, as well as the HVAC over at Tex. While the roof is off at Tex, because the HVAC is actually in the attic, we can actually address both of those at the same time. So I'll be making my presentation to council tomorrow, and hopefully it passes so I could start putting some money back into the golf courses. End of April, we were about $100,000 in the black. End of May, looks like we were about $300,000 in the black. Now, obviously, we still have to get through the slower months of November and December, but if we keep doing well through the summer, and I know staff is telling me that they are extremely busy, hopefully we can still stay in the black at the end of the year. And so that's one of the reasons why we're not hiring Troy Hendrick's position, because we want to have savings. There's a couple other positions that we are not filling because we want to have those savings that could come out to about $200,000 that we could put back into the golf courses. But this does stress me out a little bit because I'm wearing a couple different hats, but I'm definitely working with the staff. They're doing a fantastic job of managing their golf courses. As you guys might know or might not know, my management style is not to micromanage, but work with them and find the tools that they need to be successful. And so when problems arise, we've been able to address them. but I think the golf courses are pretty busy. I think they're doing okay. There's just a few little tweaks here and there that we're going to be working on. As far as the RFP, there was a discussion a little bit today about finalizing the proposal. Staff is going to get a chance to look at it. Then we're going to probably next month bring it to you guys as well as to the Golf Advisory Committee. If that happens, then we're looking at taking it out to the streets, see if we get good bids, and from those bids we can compare them to our operations and see what is going on. It's an opportunity for us to do some self-evaluation, which I'm pretty excited about. If we do move forward with a third-party operator, interviews will happen in the fall, and contract development and contract negotiation end of fall, beginning of winter to December months, and hopefully if it goes well and it is a good deal for everybody, then we will be looking at transition in January. So that's kind of the plan right now, and that's kind of where we're at.
Okay. I know a lot of guys that got out and played this weekend. I took the weekend off, if you can believe that, but heard a lot of good things. I think a few of my buddies went over to McDonald and Auburn, and then had a buddy go out to Tex this morning. So all good things. Staff is doing a great job, and yeah, as the summer progresses and things heat up, I think there's going to be a lot of beverages sold out there. So good things coming.
Yeah, we definitely needed the rain, and the rain helped, but it kind of put a damper. But what the staff is telling me is that their tee sheets are full unless it rains. and these guys are dodging the rain, trying to get some rounds in whenever they can. Obviously the rain is good, but we also have an irrigation system that can help carry the load. But the big deal was we had such a cool spring that the Bermuda grass was not popping, and now that it's warm and with a little bit of water, that Bermuda grass is growing really fast. That perfection of having the amount of moisture and rain and sun, and making sure that the course is open. That's I wish I had that control. I wish I could manage that all the time, but Mother Nature is in control of all that.
So our next GAC meeting, I believe, is July 1st. Is that correct, Penny?
I'm going to defer that. I'm going to defer that to Penny.
Yep.
But whatever day it is in July, I'm going to make the best effort to make sure that we have the draft of the RFP so we can go through it if we need to. Okay?
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions, comments on the golf update? If not, we can move forward to park maintenance. David?
Thank you, Eddie.
Other side, David.
Oh.
No.
So yeah, for May Productions there in the forestry section, you can see there we had about 3,477 inspections, the prunings, tree removals, stump grinding. It's pretty consistent to every month. We hit about those same kind of numbers. The forestry department helped set the flagpole over at the Fresh Air Baby Camp, which was kind of handy. We just used one of our bucket trucks to lift that big old flagpole up and put it in place. And the flagpole looks nice there in front of the Fresh Air Baby Camp. Support activities, normal tailgating meetings. There was an incident over in Public Works with a chainsaw, and so our safety person that we have went over and conducted a safety skills training session for Public Works, which was good. Forestry has been helping us with a considerable amount of mowing. We've been stealing folks from their work section to come over and help us mow. Now that we have the ability to fill positions, hopefully we get the maintenance guys up to speed and have plenty of staff for that. Lucity maintenance, putting in all the Lucy work orders. We're just being pretty consistent. Large log management there, you can see. We haul a lot of big logs off, and we have some big pieces of equipment to do it. It's pretty handy. It's pretty efficient. June scheduled activities. We already have had the Midwest ISA tree climbing competition was over in Riverside Park this past weekend. Very well attended. Those tree climbing guys, they're a bunch of different cats, man. They look out for each other, they love each other, and it's all about safety and how well you do, but yet they compete amongst each other, and they're really all cut out of the same mold, you know, and it was kind of fun hanging out, watching them do that. We'll have our normal data collection, inspections, and so forth. The tree climbing competition was just pretty cool. I don't know, how do I go back? Yeah, one more. There we go. So there's a little theme in these bullet points here, and it says park maintenance has been very busy this past month. Internal grounds maintenance has been maintaining the internal sites, supporting recreation programming, the art museum, dealing with illegal dumping, homeless cleanups, NASCAR park programming. There's been, you know, programming has just kicked in, and my maintenance guys help support that, help support Reggie's recreation programs, which is great. That's what we're all about, and we love it. So, and then of course, forestry has been helping the maintenance side with mowing there. Athletic maintenance has been very busy with preparing fields for league play tournaments. We've had some nice softball tournaments down at South Lakes with big numbers and that kind of thing. So we've been helping with that. The refuge crew, I told Leanne this morning, I said she's really good at juggling. She has 2 trash trucks, and neither one of them are up and running at any one given point in time. And so she's having to juggle staff, having to juggle trucks to just go around, pick up all the refuge, and then we have all the illegal dumpings and stuff. Irrigation has been keeping busy just on keeping the high visibility, revenue producing fields operational for the recreation side of things. So park maintenance has just been staying busy. And then it says this section will be busy next month with the hiring process to fill authorized positions. We are pumped up for that. We're trying to get everything in place, get all of our interview questions in place, get HR's approval so that we can start conducting some interviews. So that's pretty much it. Pretty standard stuff now that recreation programming is kicking in. We're trying to help support that and be the best we can. So I'll stand for any questions you guys might have.
Any questions for David? Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We can move forward to the finance update. Is Emma with us? I'm not seeing her on the list here.
No, she is not in the office today. I think Troy's going to cover that a little bit.
Okay. Looks like Troy's on the phone, so I'll give him a few seconds here. Do we have a spreadsheet that we can pull up, or is he just going to talk about it?
I don't have anything. He's just going to talk.
Okay.
I apologize.
You're fine.
Multitasking. Yeah, Emma is sick today. Her child is ill, so and both of them are ill, so she's not able to attend the meeting today. But what I was looking forward to is presenting our profit and loss throughout the year, and it's always interesting to see it in quarters. So this would be the end of the 5th month, but next month will be definitely mid-year, and we'll make sure that we have that prepared so we can share that with you guys.
Okay.
What's next?
Wichita Parks Foundation.
All
Alejo,
right.
do you want to give this one, or Troy, do you want to take it away?
Alejo, he needs to work a little bit.
Troy, we haven't had. I know we didn't have a May one. I don't think I made the last one. We did have one.
We did have one in June. It was just a really short, where we, I think they talked a little bit about Red, White, and Boom, and they have installed a couple extra folks to help out with the executive team. So now they have a vice president and treasurer or secretary, that kind of stuff. So, yep, that's about all they got.
Okay. Any questions there? I do not have a president's update. Director's update, Troy?
We're busy. As I was telling staff, we had a staff meeting this morning. We went from 0 to 100. The expectation is with the restrictions for COVID kind of dropping, and we're expecting more activities and special events. And we're still trying to catch up on all of our hiring and staffing. One reason why we've been successful is because I was for golf was because we've actually got a lot of our staff on board. Not as much as what we need, but definitely I think it's been impactful, and the staff appreciates the extra hands. We're working on that in our park side as well. So we're going to be doing a lot of interviews, and you're going to be seeing a lot of new faces. A lot of these positions are full-time positions that we're going to be hiring here in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So that's about all I got.
Good deal. Is there anything else that we need to cover today or put on next month's agenda? If not, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, guys. Thank you, Eddie.
Love you guys.
Thanks.